So, yes, I think that we live in uncertain times. It feels like kind of perma-crisis is the new normal. And, there really is no playbook when you're in uncharted territory. And figuring out a world where there's the perception and reality that there's one crisis after another demands leaders to navigate the challenges with foresight, with empathy, and with commitment to sustainable solutions. I want to lay the groundwork for today's panel by starting sort of on a personal level. Leadership can certainly be learned, but I think great leaders are the ones that have this intuitive ability to anticipate, to be empathetic, but also that are capable of making hard decisions. I think also when contemplating this panel, it was really important to have leaders who have gone through business cycles. So there are a lot of sort of first-time founders in the audience, and for someone who's been around a while, the last 10 years have been pretty easy to launch a beauty brand for lots of reasons. And things have gotten harder, but I'm here to say, it's in the hard times, brands end up better on the other side. You learn to be better leaders, and there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. So we wanted to have a panel who has lived through business cycles, so that we have sort of the depth of conversation to sort of the history to also inform sort of the next step. So Danessa, I want to start with you. It's nice to have you here instead of in the front row, so thank you for saying yes. How would you describe yourself as a leader, and what sort of culture do you build to facilitate successful business outcomes?
So, excuse me, guys, I have a little bit of butterflies right now. When I was in my early 20s, I read this quote by Zig Ziglar, and it said, "You can have everything you want as long as you help enough other people get what they want." And for me, that's been just the philosophy on how I live my life and just how I think about building business. For me, I'm very people-centric, if you haven't noticed. And it's really important that the people who I employ on the team are also that same way. Being incredibly empathetic is super important. And I think also transparency has been a really big thing for me. People want to understand what's happening around them. Nobody wants tasks that have no meaning, right? And so I'm very open, probably to a fault. Everyone knows everything that's happening, down to the dollar, what we're making, and just how they contribute to the full conversation. So that's a big thing for me. I use that concept of that Zig Ziglar quote also when I think about building my leadership team, because it's important for me to have people who are supporting me be a reflection of me and my ideals and how I feel about people. I want leaders who are really fixated on uplifting their team. And also, I want them to really push that message of who we're creating for and why. And it's all about people. There's a method of leadership that it was interesting, I just heard on a podcast with the CEO of Snapchat. He talks about the T leadership. I don't know if that's a thing, but it's about having people who are better than you surrounding you, people who are deeply enriched in their area of expertise. They can go really deep. That's the T. They're brilliant in their areas. I'm so happy recently we hired a CMO, a head of sales. I've literally built this amazing team of people around me. But at the same time, it's not just about what they know. It's about how they can take a step back and look at the entire ecosystem of the brand and the organization, and to be able to process that cross-functionally. So that T is how we connect to each other in the team, right? And so people that can really create that connectivity. For me, it's one team, one dream. We're all working together for a very unique purpose, and purpose is also a big part of how I lead. I think there's a lot of people can work anywhere,
Yep.
but what gets you out of bed in the morning? Is it that you make beauty products, or what I tell my team, and what if you ask anybody in my organization what we do, we connect hearts and minds through beauty. That's a much bigger purpose, right? And it's that thing that it's that glue that keeps you together and makes you think bigger about everything that you're doing. So a big part of my leadership is people really being clear on what we really are doing through purpose. I can go on and on because there's a million things, but I think that like high level, that's where I live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Margaret, you have been at Space NK in sort of this very interesting moment. So I remember when Space NK launched, because I was at Bliss and they were doing what we were doing in the UK. So I've sort of seen the whole trajectory. And you and sort of the leadership team that Andy has put in place has really taken this heritage brand and made it beyond relevant. You're leading the market and you're competitive. And I think that takes also a different kind of leadership to sort of be in kind of a turnaround mode. Like, what are sort of I guess the skills that you have that sort of translated to make that successful?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we really think about and that we focus on is being super clear about what is the goal and what is the target, what's the KPI that we need to deliver. And for us, the customer is the target, the KPI, the goal. So we measure all of our success in terms of customer performance. Sales is an outcome of customer behaviors. So that customer, and down to the granularity, I mean, every brand has a customer target by store, by channel, by week, in terms of what we expect to happen. So really being clear for our teams around those KPIs and those targets and measuring them. I think then the second thing is really setting the tenets of the culture. And for me, some of the things that is first building incredible partnerships with our brands. We couldn't do what we do without our brand partners. And so being a win-win model where it's not like if I, the retailer, win, then the brand loses or vice versa. But it's about how we co-create together and how we build the business together and excite the customer. So building win-win partnerships and working at an incredible pace. There's no question that in today's world you have to move quickly. And I think that maintaining that agility and that pace has been incredibly important for us as a leadership team in order to deliver this transformation. And then lastly, it's hiring incredible teams and letting them loose. So if you've got those goals and you've got the tenets of that culture, actually, and you hire amazing people, then just get out of the way at that point. And that's really sort of our mantra.
Yeah. So Piyush, you come from big beauty, and then you took over a big entrepreneurial business. So from your perspective as sort of a big beauty leader and transitioning to sort of an entrepreneurial environment, you know, how is it that you lead? And you have also gone through sort of a transition of the business.
Yeah, a couple of philosophies for me of how the world is shaping up. I think the first is the pace of change today is the fastest it has ever been, and yet at the same time, it's the slowest it'll ever be. So let's just let that thought sink in, because that's the reality we are faced with. And the second is this whole idea that I can control everything is just not possible. So you have to focus, you have to figure out what can you control and focus your energies on controlling the controllables. So those are two tenets that really help me think through how I want to shape up, how I want to build the team, how I want to build the company and the culture around it. So with that, getting the best team in place, the best team which is diverse, so an image of me in the value system, but not an image of me in the skill set they bring, in how they think differently and therefore constantly challenge me as well, is critical. And I think those are the only teams that succeed, where the values are the same, yet there's diversity of thinking. And then with that, there are three things that I try to do as a leader with my team. The first is inspire. If we are not thinking new thoughts all the time, then we are really not bringing the future into the present. The second is challenge. So challenging the status quo. Whatever we've done in the past is not good enough to win tomorrow. So how do we continue to challenge that and really reinvent beauty for the future? And the third one is believe. Exactly like you said, Margaret, when you've got the right team in place, you have to believe in them. You have to allow them to run the business, to take it to greater heights and get out of the way. So those are some of the things that I try to do.
Yeah. You know, we sort of live in a time of colliding political, social, economic challenges. We also have sort of environmental degradation with massive scientific and technological transformation. And it creates this very complicated environment. It also creates, from a business perspective, an environment that can be a little disorienting. I think sort of on the environmental front, it is, you know, these extreme climate events are not going to stop. We can't control Mother Nature. So there is constantly this overhang of kind of what's next. And to your point, it's like you control what you can. You know, we also, I think for beauty, these dynamics are also coupled with more competition. I think it's never been more competitive. And also the emergence of new business models and sales channels. It's like, do we know what's happening with TikTok Shop yet? Or is that tomorrow? Tariffs were today, like, yeah.
That's the other
so
keyword.
there's all that. But let's dive into sort of the current state of play, because it is what it is. We can control none of those things, but we all still have businesses to run. So I'd like to take the current temperature of sort of the beauty business environment. And Danessa, I want to start with you because, like many people in the audience, you hold the dual role of founder and CEO. You're both the face of the brand, and you're also the leader of the business. And we sort of, one of the trends that we saw was, you know, people take investment, they professionalize the business, the founder gets pushed aside, a CEO comes in, the CEO goes away, the founder is back. And you have very firmly like owned both of those roles, and you have built an amazing team like around you, and no one gets to you without them. You got to go through them in the front row here to get to Vanessa, by the way. But with we have 1 quarter behind us. So what's top of mind for you, and how are you sort of addressing the current environment?
Well, it's so interesting because our brand is in a very unique phase. We're in a growth phase, right? That's already crazy and uncomfortable, and every day is a new learning, right? I mean, just having a success in a product or something going viral could change your whole business. So, like, internally for me, I'm very cognizant of change and how that's never going to end. And so for me, the focus is always operational excellence, right? I just really want to build a very strong foundation. And to your point, this time right now is incredibly distracting. Incredibly distracting. But, you know, my job as a leader is to keep people focused, right? And so it's really important for me that we focus on the basics, to be honest. Like, how are we with our supply chain? Like, how are we with inventory? How are we with making our POs? Like, how are we with our interaction with our customers? Like, that's so much more important, and those are the things that, to your point, I have control over.
Yep.
So that's the one thing. And I think, two, it's something that I think about often in terms of distractions. You know, I'm always telling the team, when we talk about tariffs, when we talk about what's happening with TikTok, and we talk about the competitive landscape, like, everything is competition. But for me, our only competition is us and our own metrics. And so I'm really just keeping the team focused on, like, what did we do last month, last week, last year, and where we are today, and are we better? And I think doing that just really gives the team an opportunity to experience wins all the time and focus truly on us. And I think when we can turn the cameras back on ourselves, you know, we're just way more efficient and we're way more productive, and we can control the controllables, like you mentioned. Yeah.
So, Margaret, since we have you, a retailer, on the panel, you know, it's not only brands that are super competitive. The retail environment, especially in the UK, has gotten incredibly competitive. I think also, I mean, you guys went through Brexit. Now you're dealing with tariffs because a lot of your brands are imported. I think for beauty consumers in the UK, it's a great time because you have a fantastic, everyone's like upped their game on the retail front. And you guys are still sort of the high street leader. You understand sort of the neighborhoods and how to deliver to those customers. But with all of that, sort of in this environment, you know, what keeps you up at night, and how are you navigating as a retailer this climate?
So we've had 4 straight years of over 30% growth, and so it's been a really exciting ride. Thank you. Not easy in a retail landscape. So the thing that keeps me up at night is how to keep that going, because 30% on a bigger number is a lot more customers, a lot more. So, you know, how to keep that trajectory going. And we know the recipe that works, but a big part of our recipe is creativity and thinking differently. So there's how do you come up with new ways of bringing brands to market and exciting the customer and constantly innovate? How do you do it faster, and how do you do it more efficiently at the same time? So the recipe has to move faster and spin faster in order for that 30% to keep going. So that's definitely what keeps me up at night. It's not next week's numbers, it's next year's numbers and the year after that. And I think as a leader, you are always thinking much farther in advance than your teams, and like the thing that gives me the pit in my stomach is 2026, right? Because I feel like I should have done the work by now to deliver 2025, but it's next year that keeps me up.
Yeah. So Piyush, you know, leveraging your 23 plus years at Unilever, you know, now you lead one of the largest incubators in beauty at Maesa, and you have a portfolio of brands sold in most points of distribution, from dollar retail to prestige retail. You have a very I've had the pleasure of working with your team. I know how sophisticated the supply chain is. So, you know, everyone who thinks they're going to build an incubator or a portfolio of brands, they always think the creative and the marketing, and really the success comes at being hardcore operators first, and you guys have mastered that. But what is top of mind for you, and how are you navigating this? Because I have to imagine tariffs have been top of mind.
Absolutely. No, thanks for saying that. As we think about Maesa, we actually increasingly are talking a lot about going beyond being the largest beauty incubator. The way we think about Maesa now is the next-gen beauty company, right? Being the next-gen beauty company basically challenges everything, right? You have to think about what is the portfolio of the future, how do you create brands that are not meeting one consumer's demand but multiple consumers' demand, which categories do we choose to play in, how do we choose to play in that space. As we have a portfolio, how do you have a supply chain, which you talked a bit about for us, which meets the demands of new brands that we are constantly creating, but also meets the demand of larger brands that we already have in our portfolio. One of the things that happened to us, and you know, everyone looks back at the pandemic with so many learnings, and for us, obviously, it was a transformational moment because we realized that our largest brand, Kristen S, was already so large and meaningful that if you can't keep it on shelf for retailers, it actually really matters not only to us and our consumers, but to our retail partner as well. And that allowed us to sit back and say, how do we revisit the supply chain that meets the demands of where this company is going? And as a result, what we ended up doing is doing a dual source supply chain. So we traditionally had a lot of reliability from international suppliers, particularly on the component side, but lead times grew, supply chain became stretched, and therefore we brought a lot of our components in-house. Not in-house as in in-house to Maesa, but within the country. So making that change allowed us to be more reliable, shorter lead times, move faster, and therefore now what we operate is this ability to do creativity from different parts of the world, but a lot of our supply chain is also domestic, which fortunately in this scenario helps us with the tariffs. So you could say we already predicted it. We didn't. It just so happened, but we planned it well. But it's improved our reliability and allows us to play this dual role. Then going beyond that, as we step into this next-gen beauty company, how do we think about technology? How do we use technology not for a small-scale company, but a medium-sized company that we've become? Thinking about AI and one of our brands, Finery, literally everything that we do on Finery, all the creative is AI generated. So we're leaning into technology because in today's world, you need to be a content factory. You cannot rely on a few creatives somewhere sitting and creating content when the world is demanding content. So we're beginning to think of all these things, and that's what's allowing us to leap into the future.
Yeah. I just looked at the time, and I was way ambitious with all these questions. So we're gonna go off script a little bit. I want to lean into technology a little bit, Margaret, because we were talking about that over lunch. And from a retailer's perspective, I know technology has been a big part of this transformation. How are you using it, both sort of like internally and sort of with your brand partners?
So technology for us is very much an enablement function. It's not something like we've gone and put a ton of screens in store that you touch and feel, or devices. It is very invisible to the customer, I would say, in most ways. But we use machine learning models to predict sort of what's the best next action for a customer to drive their LTV, or how do we forecast new products and allocate them accurately so that we maximize performance across the channels. So we're really using sort of models and internal, it's all built in-house, so it's all proprietary to allow us to move quickly. I think at the same time that technology is incredibly important for efficiency, and to your point, that pace of generation of content. There's never been a time that's more important for human-to-human interaction and creativity in a business. And so finding a way for those to coexist is incredibly important. And that, I think, is what we really prioritize, is technology that is invisible and drives efficiency, and then customer experiences that are unique and incredible, but really human, and our creative money can't buy moments.
Yeah. So, in case you didn't know from the last panel, we're not afraid to poke the tiger at BeautyMatter. So this is going to be the last question, and it's around discounting. Not another not so favorite topic to talk about, like only behind closed doors, but we're going to like kick the doors open. One of the disruptions of the last decade that was I kind of feel like it was ushered in with D2C models is discounting. I kind of feel like it came with a big D2C bow wrapped on it, because before that, beauty did not get discounted. Retailers loved beauty because it never went on sale. And then all of a sudden, discounting became customer acquisition, and now we're on this like slippery slope. TikTok Shop has like pushed it to a whole other level. Pricing and discounting strategies have become levers. They've become levers of customer acquisition. We've also trained customers that you never have to pay full price. And they've become huge liabilities. TikTok Shop, I think, has sort of put fuel on the fire. But I think we all know that it's not really sustainable. So, Danessa, you're a Sephora brand, so maintaining the retail price is really important. Yeah. Otherwise, you get in trouble. But seriously, like, what is your strategy around sort of this discounting dilemma, and like, what are the expectations, in premium retail to brands to sort of maintain price?
So that's a really big question.
I know.
I think, it's going to be different for every brand. When I think about our brand, like in my life, I've been building this brand for 20 years, but most people just discovered our brand today, right? 70% of our customers are new. So when I think about that, and I think about the space that we occupy in Sephora, I actually feel really fortunate right now, because Sephora, they are great brand builders. And I think it's important that we solidify ourselves as a brand before we start racing to the bottom with discounting. That being said, I see the other side where sometimes I think about missed opportunity in customer acquisition. Well, all the time I think about it.
And you end up with excess inventory that it's an easy way to move.
100%. But I think right now prioritizing what value people see in our brand is most important for a business at our stage. And I think it's also important to manage this relationship very well, too.
Yeah.
Because being in Sephora is a big part of our brand's growth. I mean, from pre-Sephora to now, we've 10x'd our business, if not more. So
Congratulations.
there's value there, right? Thank you. So I think it's ever evolving.
Yeah.
And it's really dependent on like where you are.
Yeah. You know, Margaret, we were talking about it. As a retailer, kind of discounting is not in the DNA of Space NK, but you have to, otherwise you can't be competitive. But you guys have done some really creative, kind of zigged when other people are zagging.
Yeah.
The fragrance pop-up was a great example of that.
Yeah.
So how are you sort of navigating discount by creating value?
So, as you say, you can't not do it. The UK is the most promotional beauty market there is, so in terms of the proportion of units that are sold on discount, so it would be naive to say, like, we're just not going to do it, because the customer there does value that. But we do also, as you say, when there's a big discounting moment, we like to create an experience where the customer can come in and do something that is different from just shopping around for a price. So we did a fragrance pop-up, and we like to do that with all of our brand partners as well, is creating these really special moments that, as you say, create value and bring people something that is unique, that they won't be able to get, that you can't find just through scrolling on your phone. So that for us is the complement, and allows us to really make those discount moments, if we do have them, into ways to keep exciting the customer. And we study the customer behavior, and we know that which activities work and which don't. So yeah, it's a balance. It's for sure a balance, but investing in those money can't buy experiences for us has been the way to balance it.
Yeah, I feel like we're going to have a leadership part 2 conversation, because I feel like we've just scratched the surface, and I feel like leadership in this moment is so important. But I want to make sure that we can get a couple questions in. So are there any questions? Yes.
Resilience within your team during a world where uncertainty is the new normal?
Well, for me, in uncertain times, people need to know, they need to have something that is certain. So for me, it's like doubling down on who we are, what we stand for, what they can expect when they come to work, what they can expect from my leadership. I'm not zigzagging and changing every day. Pivoting is one thing, but like they know our core values, how we operate as an organization, how we think about what we're building, it never changes. You know, and so I think for me, it's about creating certainty within the brand and within the leadership structure. I mean, because that's, again, it's all that I can control.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, oh, okay. And then we have another one up here.
So consumer confidence is at a serious low right now, and sure, we're all familiar with the idea of the, the lipstick index, but I guess I'm curious about your thoughts on the resiliency of that concept, and ultimately how you're kind of thinking about the fact that people just don't really want to buy stuff right now.
Piyush, why don't you tackle that one?
So the lipstick effect is real. I am a genuine believer in this. I think beauty as an industry is more resilient. Fortunately for us, we play a portfolio, right? By and large, the portfolio that we've created operates actually at the masstige price point. And what you see is actually some consumers tend to navigate upwards when the confidence is low, and they want to be careful about, take hair care as an example. The salon visit might go down, but therefore you're buying a slightly more expensive shampoo, so you get that luxury moment in your shower. And yes, some consumers trend downwards. I think it's a matter of time. Beauty over a long period of time is resilient. So yes, consumer confidence is low, but currently is low, but I don't expect this to last.
I think, though, this is why it's really important for brands to lean into their DNA and their values. Because I agree, people may not want to shop, but people will always want to support people. And I think if you've created, if you created a community of people who want to see you win, who are rooting for you, who love what you stand for, who love how you make people feel, how you're shifting ideals and shifting community. I mean, think about your neighbors who come and they're like, I don't eat carbs, but my neighbor's like, my daughter, she's selling this because they're going to help the kids at her school. I'm buying 50 bags of popcorn. I don't need 50 bags of popcorn.
Oh, please, I think we have 50 boxes of Girl Scout cookies in our office.
But I believe in her, and I want to support her in what she's doing. So I think in times like this, it's really important for people to show who they are. Like, what do you stand for? So people want to stay with you and support you and rally for you during difficult times.
I mean, Margaret, you guys actually have a physical space, and like you're on the high street, so you're also sort of a gathering place for like a neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think people it's okay if people come and browse, and it's okay if people come and explore and touch and feel, and it takes them 4 or 5 shops before they convert. I think what we do is we pivot the KPIs, and so you say, okay, maybe ATV is not the metric to focus on. We're going to focus on nurturing our customer. We're going to focus on frequency. We're going to focus on conversion, and that's what we can manage, is making sure that if they want to spend half of what they spent last year, that's okay. They're still going to have a great experience, and really wrapping our arms around that customer no matter what their journey or their mission is. I think that's what's really important in times like this.
Yeah. I think we have time for one more question.
Hi. Okay, so thank you so much for everybody. Danessa specifically, you said a lot of ideas about leadership that I think are really important, but specifically I wanted to ask you, I've led a lot of different teams that have director talent, but then also recent grads, and I have experienced a very big difference in what someone in their 20s needs in the environment. And of course, we want to empower them, but I'd love to hear your perspective on maybe a unique situation or a strategy to engage and sustain people in their 20s to feel as committed to maybe someone that's in their 40s and already much further in their career.
Well, I have 2 kids. I have a daughter who's 25 and a son who's 31. So I'm
How's that
living in
possible?
space. I'm going to be 55. That's how it's But so I completely understand where you're coming from. I think for me, it's really important that we allow people to be themselves. And I think it's just how I think about our team, and also how our leadership thinks about our team. We're not making people be who they're not. So we're allowing our team to show up how they want to tell us what their strengths are, what their deepest desires are, and then we're navigating like the kind of work that we give them and what their roles are based on that. Because if they don't feel good about being there, then nobody wins, right? So in that regard, I mean, that's what we do, but we have to balance it out with the other side, right? With really strong leadership that knows how to do that, that can shift the mode and replan their org chart based on the existing talent. But, you know, I've learned to embrace this, and actually I think it's what makes our brand really strong. The level of diversity in ideals, in age, in, I mean, people say that our office is like the United Nations. Like, everyone works there. We have every age. We have 65-year-olds who work there, and we have 20-year-olds who work there. Like, we have the gamut. And I think it's what makes us, that's who our customer is too. So for me, it helps me to understand who we're serving, you know, as a brand. And how they're feeling is how my customer is feeling, and all their things are valid. And when we talk about this social experience, and our brand literally operates off of social, like, I mean, they're right there in the office. Like, what should Danessa do today, 21-year-old? Like, what speaks to you? I mean, those voices are really important. So before, I was just like, how dare you not want to work 20 hours a day like me? But, you know, I'm not like that anymore. I'm just like, you know, give me what you got. And that's where we're at.
Well, we have run out of time. A big thank you to Margaret for like being a trooper.
Thank you. Winging it.
And yeah, so I know everyone's around. These guys are such a wealth of knowledge and really sort of inspirations as leaders. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.